Vamos a jugar baseball. Translated, that statement means, let's play baseball. Known far and wide as America's pastime, baseball arguably had a much bigger cultural impact on Cuba than the United States. What we're going to talk about today is exactly how did baseball get to Cuba in the first place? What kind of a cultural impact did it leave on Cuba once it got there? What did some of Cuba's baseball players have to go through to get to America to play in the major leagues? Who were some of the major league's best Cuban baseball players? And finally, what kind of an impact did they have on the major leagues once they got there? So first things first, let me just get rid of this. I needed a baseball bat, all I could find was a rake. So you work with what you have, much like the Cuban baseball players did when they first got started. In an article written by Justin Turner back in fall of 2010, in an article titled 1970s Baseball Diplomacy Between Cuba and the United States, the article speaks of a man named Nemesio Gio, who in 1858 went along with several of his classmates to Alabama in the United States to go to college and study. When he returned with baseball equipment, and so he began setting up games in his neighborhood, and so baseball got its start. It's a very simple origin, a very clean-cut origin. However, there was a rather large problem in the form of the Spanish government. They did not appreciate the foreign influence that baseball was having in their country. And so, since they were in control of the country at the time, they banned baseball altogether in 1868 and figured that was the end of that story. They were wrong. Not long after that, the 10-year war started, and since America is not one to just sit by and let a war happen without they having some kind of say-so, they decided to jump in there, and so the American influence skyrocketed along with baseball's popularity. So, what happened after? What was the cultural impact? Just put it simply, baseball was not just a game to these people. It could have been just a game, but it soon became more symbolic. It started to mean something more than just baseball. It wasn't just baseball, it was something else entirely. The Spanish Caribbean countries started to use baseball on their teams as a means of proving superiority over each other. Baseball was not just our team won, it now became our team won because our ideologies, our morals, our ways of life are better than yours. This mentality that carried on for quite some time would be used full force by a man known as Fidel Castro. Known at the time as a revolutionary rather than a dictator, Castro was able to use this mentality that the countries were having and start to rally the troops and the people behind him by using baseball players as symbolic heroes of the country. Behold our baseball players. We are Cuba. We are baseball. And our way is better than all other ways. This egalitarian regime started to push its way through the country, and so it finally came to a real head when the Havana sugar canes, which was at the time was under American ownership, was moved to New Jersey under American government pressure. And so once that was done, the Cuban Professional League was abolished altogether by Castro, and baseball became just a hobby, something to do for the sake of national pride. We don't play baseball for the money, which, by the way, the athletes did have a higher salary than most other normal workers. We play it because we just love baseball and our country that much. Castro did not speak for the baseball players. They did not appreciate the fact that their perks, their increased salaries were taken away, and now they had to play baseball just for the sake of it being a hobby. They were making their living off of baseball. And so what did they do to make sure they could keep that? They risked life and limb. They came to America, which at the time, under the Castro regime, and still is to this day, an act of treason. In an article written in ESPN magazine by Scott Eaton back in April of 2014, the story of Yasiel Puig is told. He had already tried to escape Cuba 4 other times along with his best friend, and so the Cuban government already knew that he was going to try again, and so they were watching him. The plan was to get on a boat that was going to take carrying smugglers, and so they would try to take him on his next leg of his journey. He waded through neck-deep waters, avoided police at every turn, and they had even reached a point, because the boat was late, that they had decided, we're going to die in the wilderness, let's just go surrender and be done with it, so that we don't die in the wilderness. At that exact moment, almost like magic, the boat appeared. The boat's explanation for why it was late? They got lost. Imagine how Puig felt about that. Imagine the relief and probably disbelief that he felt over the fact that the boat just got lost. Nevertheless, He did get on the boat with his best friend, and he had made the acceptance in his heart that he would probably never see his home country again. He had just committed treason and given up his Cuban citizenship. But he was chasing his dream. And he is now a star outfielder for the Los Angeles Dodgers. The players that do actually make it to America and get to the major leagues actually have a bigger impact on America than they did in Cuba. Think of Orlando Hernandez, for one, who won 3 straight World Series titles with the New York Yankees, and then won 1 more with the Chicago White Sox. So you can tell that he obviously had a big impact with his well-known high leg kick. If I could just get some room here, I believe it was about this high. Go check out some highlights when you get the chance. It's actually pretty fascinating. Other examples of Cuban baseball players include the late Jose Fernandez, Aroldis Chapman, who now holds the major league record for fastest pitch with 105 miles per hour, Yoenis Cespedes, and the list goes on and on and on. And these players have become somewhat of a hot commodity among major league owners. They want these players that managed to escape from Cuba because of just how good they are. Yoenis Cespedes received a 4-year, $36 million contract as a rookie before he even swung a bat for them. Aroldis Chapman got $30 million from the Cincinnati Reds before he even threw a pitch, or even proved that he could pitch with control. They knew he could throw hard. They didn't know if he could actually control it. So these players are highly sought after by major leaguers just because of the raw potential that they have. And they're seen as potential missing pieces to a World Series championship. Cuba and America are connected and always will be through baseball. No one knows exactly what their politics will be in the coming years, but we can be sure that as long as baseball exists, these two vastly different countries will be connected in at least that way. And hopefully, it will even reach the point where Cuba and America can be friendly with each other once more, once Cuba has realized that dictatorships are not the answer.